So in that moment, I wish I could say I was happy, but my heart broke because I knew in my heart I was going to have to break my father's heart.
That was my next question. Yeah. How did you ever get the courage, and did your mother help you prepare?
It took me
to
4 years, 4 years to muster up the courage.
Sure.
And I had to look into my life, and as I projected into the future, I saw that I could take the expected path and follow my father's script for my life.
Right.
But when I projected into my future, if I was truly honest, as I project 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, I felt like I was literally killing my soul. I was murdering my soul. And I felt the pain of that. You know, it was like this pain.
Right.
And even though the path of following my soul, I had no idea where that was going to lead me. Something about it just felt right. And so that moment, I knew that I had to make a decision. And that decision was to have a conversation with my father, to retire from the church at 18 and have the conversation. And I spoke to my mother, who was...
You understand most people retire at 65.
Yes, I
You're
understand.
18.
18.
Right.
4 years into the ministry.
Yeah.
And here's what happened too. I was about 17, and I was wrestling with this whole, what do I do? How do I face this? Because it felt like a death for me, you know?
Right.
And I remember 17-year-old Kute, there was a spiritual bookstore called, I think it was called Watkins in Leicester Square.
Yep.
And I was such in turmoil that 17-year-old Kute, church boy, right? I go to this bookstore to find these spiritual books, and there's a psychic reading. And I'm like, I need some help.
Right.
And I'm terrified going to a psychic.
Yeah.
So I end up going to a psychic for 30 minutes. Said, look, I feel this calling. I don't know what to do. Oh my God. But my father's going to kill me. He's going to hate me. I'm never going to have a relationship with my father again. I remember this guy saying, everything's going to be okay if you just follow your soul. And I didn't trust it.
Yeah.
I was terrified. But after about a couple more years, I finally said, I don't have a choice. So for me, it really felt like it got to the point where I did not have a choice. And to not follow my soul, to not trust my soul, to not be obedient to my soul would be death. And I think why many of us, we are depressed, we are frustrated, we feel pain, physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. Our life stops flowing is because we're blocking the flow of life by not trusting and listening to our soul.
Right.
And then I had a conversation with my mother, and I told my mother, Mom, this is how I feel, you know, and I'll never forget. She said, if it's what you truly feel, I support you completely. Wow. But you're going to have the conversation with your father. And that gave me the courage to confront my father, have the conversation. And it was a deep moment, you know. I'll never forget tiptoeing up the steps to my father's bedroom. My father was sleeping, and I said, Dad, I need to talk to you. This was the moment where I felt like I was killing my father, you know.
Yes.
But I think that every boy has to kill his father, metaphorically, to become his true man.
His own man.
Of
course, yeah.
And that's the day I became a man. And I said, Dad, I'm not taking over. And he said, are you sure? That was even worse because I'd rather he just threw some things around the room and screamed. But he just said, are you sure?
Right.
And
he put it back on you.
And I had to dig into myself and really reach in. And there was a moment where I almost didn't. And he said, are you sure? I said, yes. That's when I knew there was no going back. He was silent. Yeah. We didn't speak for 2 years. And that's when I went to my room and I cried. I wept. Because I felt like either I just made the most epic mistake of my entire life when I just destroyed my life.
Right.
Or I don't know what. And I sat in my room, probably for the next weeks, and I said to God, God, you've given me this calling. You've given me this guidance. You've guided me to this point. I feel that what I'm feeling is true.
Yeah.
But I have literally just jumped into the middle of the ocean and I have no direction. Like, don't leave me now. If any of this stuff I've been reading since I was a child, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, what have you, if any of this is true, if any of this stuff works, I need to know it now.
Right.
Like, help, don't leave me here now.
I don't want to wander in the desert for 40 years. Yeah, exactly.
And I was just in this unknown void. And I knew I couldn't turn back. And so I was just sitting in this void. And I remember being in the library of my school, waiting for an answer. And someone hands me a magazine called The Economist. I have no idea why, but I felt chills in my body in that moment. Like something was guiding. This was a clue.
Right, right.
And I look in the back. It says, American government's giving away 55,000 green cards in the green card lottery. I knew that moment. I knew that the universe, God was guiding me.
Yes.
This was the sign I'd been waiting for. Many times we ask for the sign, but we're not paying attention.
Right.
Because we have an idea or a preconceived idea that the way that life is going to show up is going to be a specific way.
It has to follow my blueprint or it's wrong.
Life can happen in so many different ways
right.
that is beyond our conscious egos, personalities, imagination.
Right.
Because when we're locked into the ego, we're only able to see a very limited sliver of life and the
Right.
pie.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the library. Someone says, American government's giving away 55,000 green cards in the lottery. I'm like, what the hell is a lottery?
Right.
But I knew. And I entered. And I knew I was going to win. And so I entered through a law firm in Washington, paid a fee, $1,000, whatever
Right.
it was, entered. This was April. I was told that unless you heard back by September the 17th or the 18th, I think it was, if you don't hear back by that time that you've won, just move on with your life. So every day I'm meditating, I'm praying,
Right.
I'm doing my visualization, law of attraction.
Right,
I'm
right,
visualizing myself in America.
Right.
I'm imagining, was it Bush or whoever, the president
Right.
shaking my hand at the airport, welcoming me to America. I even went as far as cutting out a green card because, the first book I read in self-help was Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain.
Yep.
Imagination, the
Right.
power of imagination.
Right.
You got to visualize what you want. So I'm going to visualize myself in America. I got a map of Los Angeles, Wilshire Boulevard, Beverly Boulevard, Olympic Boulevard, Santa Monica. I'm visualizing myself there. I literally cut out a piece of paper, colored it green, wrote my name, says green card. Didn't know green cards were pink, but it did its job.
Right.
So I had this green card in my wallet that was made up, and I'm
my
visualizing
gosh.
myself there. I'm feeling myself there, like I'm in America. I'm living in America. Bush is shaking my hand. Here I am, the president of the United States, welcoming me. Every day I am expecting my green card notification. Every day I go to the mailbox and there's nothing. September the 17th, nothing. September the 18th. Nothing.
Oh, no.
Now I am pissed off at the universe.
Right.
I'm pissed off. I'm mad at God.
Yeah.
I'm like, I had one of those F you God moments.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there screaming at God, going, you abandoned me. And I said to my mother, I'm going to America. I'm packing. I feel the calling so strongly that I am going to America with 2 suitcases, green card or not, in 2 weeks. Call it illegal, but I'm going. That's it. It's non-negotiable. I'm not backing down because I know that what I feel is true.
It's too strong.
It's too strong.
Yeah.
And so that night I went to sleep, started packing my bags. My mom is getting worried. We got a phone call that night. My mother picks up the phone and says, it's for you. It's a guy from America. I'm like, okay. Is this Mr. Blackson? I said, yes. This is Mr. So-and-so with the law firm you applied through. He goes, we can't believe this, but you've won a green card.
No way.
I'm like, no way. I'm going crazy. I'm hugging my mother. I'm 17 and a half.
Oh, yeah.
I'm screaming, jumping, put the phone down. We're jumping and hugging. And in that moment of celebration, I hear a voice that says, Kute, why do you seem so surprised? You're acting like you didn't know. You knew you were going to win. And that was a moment where there was such a deep connection to the knowing that I've always remembered that moment.
Right.
And so won the green card, came to America with 2 suitcases, $800 in my pocket, 1 suitcase full of clothes, 1 suitcase full of books, seminar tapes, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar books and tapes.
You're ready.
And just showed up in America, 18. Landed in Los Angeles, following a dream, following a vision. No idea where I was going.
Right.
No idea what I was doing. Pre-internet, couldn't research. But the soul knows. And what I have found is that when you follow your soul, if you dare to follow your soul, and this is what I have done my whole life. I'm not the most intelligent person. I'm not the most scientific person. I'm not the most Ivy League trained person. I'm not the most, whatever person, but I am the person that has single-handedly dared to follow my soul. whether it made sense or not.
Right.
And I think when you follow your soul without question, you will always end up, this is what I've seen, you will always end up in the right place at the right time with the right people doing the right thing, even though the pathway that you take doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so that's what I've done. Life has been a process of following my soul. It brought me here to you, and here we are, and that's how I came to America. Just landed.
Wow. I want to go back a little bit, because I think a lot of, and then I want to take you from the day you landed in America on. So I want to back up a little bit and speak to parents today that want something so bad for their children because that's what they were, or that is the dream they always had for their lives, for themselves. And they think their children to just automatically be ready for it, would want to accept it. Yeah. Since dad played football, little Johnny's going to go to every football practice, whether he likes it or not, because dad wants it for him. And at what point does the father say, okay, I want you, this is what I would like you to do, and I'm giving you a little guidance, but I should really be asking you what you want to do? Yeah. So shifting from the parent being authoritative, and I know it's even 10 times this in your culture then. Yeah. Because the son, the father, and it's a lot in our culture too, but with that big of a following with your father and this iconic person that everyone looked up to, that's just the path that will be. So he didn't know, he didn't know really what you wanted, because he was so enthralled with you becoming the next. But I think that speaks to a lot of parents out now. Like, how do you assess that in your kid and give them the choice?
This is what I would say, and I think it's multi-layered.
Of course.
And it's even paradoxical in certain ways. First thing I would say is, your kids don't belong to you. They belong to life. They belong to the universe. Mm-hmm. Your kids aren't yours. Mm-hmm. They are lives. Right. And I think we are all souls. Right. And we incarnate into this human experience, this earth school, right, to learn, to grow, and evolve. Yes. And if life is a school, your kids really have their own curriculum. They have their own life lessons. Right. They have their own path, their own lessons. And regardless of you, they're here to learn their lessons, and you don't really get to choose their lessons. Mm-hmm. Their soul chooses their lessons. Mm-hmm. And the soul is here to evolve with or without you. Right. And many of those lessons, they're going to learn, because that's the curriculum that their soul has incarnated to learn. Sure. And you're part of their teacher, but they're also your teacher. Right? Right. And many times we see ourselves as, oh, I'm here to teach them, which we are to a degree, but they're also here to teach us. Right. So when you realize that we are all souls with our own path, with our own lessons, with our own curriculum, then your job is to not, shall we say, simply condition them to be who you think you want them to be, but I think is to provide a environment and a space and the conditions so that the innate intelligence of their own soul can truly flourish. Is to provide the environment and conditions so that the true inner wisdom of their own soul can thrive and activate. Sure. But I think many times as parents, based on our traumas, our own unmet needs, our own conditioning from childhood, we are in reaction, and from our own limited conditioning, which we can talk about, we then and our limited belief system, we then impose that onto our children, thinking we're doing the best thing, not realizing that our own pain and our own wounds and our own insecurities and our own unmet needs are now, thwarting,
twisting their future,
our own children's natural flourishing and development.
That's right.
So when you see them as not an extension of you, your children are not an extension of you. Your children are not here to fulfill your needs and desires. Your children are here to learn, grow, and evolve, and to fulfill and realize the highest potentiality that their soul is seeking to experience. And your job is to provide the space for them to truly be able to do that, remove the weeds, so that the seeds can just grow as beautifully and as naturally as possible, and to, guide without imposing. And I think there's a difference between guiding and imposing. So when you can truly see them as their own souls with their own unique path, I think there's a different relationship that we can have with our kids. Sure. And I think one of the, also a side note I would say, is one of the greatest gifts that we can give our children, if we want to parent them, and now having a 3-year-old, is a living experiment.
Right.
I think one of the greatest gifts we can give to our children is a free consciousness. One of the greatest gifts we can give our children is our own inner evolution and our own healing.
Right.
Because whatever we don't resolve, our own pain, our own traumas, our own conditioning, our own childhood, our own ancestral, because the stuff that was not resolved by our ancestors, that gets passed down and handed down through generations, genetically, energetically, vibrationally,
spiritually,
karmically. And then whatever we don't resolve flows to the next generation.
To resolve.
Yep. So many times we are playing out the unresolved secrets and patterns of generations previously, the addiction, the alcoholism, the pain, the abuse, that the secrets that weren't resolved, that flows to us. And now many of us, we're living out a life. We're born into an environment, and now we're living out a life that we're not even aware, some of it's not even ours.